Hi, my name is Christine Miranda, and today on the final presentation of the design project, I'm going to be talking about my research, which is complementary assets and the use of leading practices to passively contribute to companies' cost advantage. On today's presentation, we're going to talk about the research have shown that performance has disregarded the existing resources and capabilities to apply environmental management leading practices. Uh, when we talk about the leading practices concept, we're referring to protecting the environment while minimizing costs. The aim of this presentation is going to be to analyze the importance of complementary assets and whether they are required to generate cost advantage as a result of implementing these leading practices. The results that are going to be discussed in this presentation are from 88 chemical companies, and these companies have shown there's a relationship between leading practices and cost advantage, and that it is achievable through the application of process innovation and implementation of complementary assets. The objectives for the presentation is going to be first to determine if there's a relationship between leading practices of environmental management and the competitive cost advantage of a firm. And also we're going to be establishing a role in the establishing a role of complementary assets in the relationship between the leading practices and also the competitive cost advantage of the firm. The methodology used in this research was first we designed a survey, and we asked companies in the chemical industry, companies as P&G, Pfizer, Lilly, ExxonMobil, BP, DuPont, etc. So we asked these companies to identify one environmental issue that had a great effect on their business units. Some of the response that we got on the survey was air pollution, water pollution, waste, product issues, among others. After we designed this survey and we got the response back from the companies, we developed hypotheses based on the data collected from the survey and literature information. After we developed these hypotheses, we tested these hypotheses using the ordinary least square regression analysis, and we also tested the relationship between the hypothesis of the complementary assets using moderated regression analysis. So the research employee in this study was research-based view of the firm current complementary assets and how they can affect the relationship between leading practices of environmental management and competitive cost advantage of the different companies. For this particular research, two sets of hypotheses were generated on the data collected from the survey and the literature information, like mentioned before. The survey was designed to ask respondents to identify one environmental issue that greatly affected their business unit. The two sets that we developed we broke it down into the best leading practices hypothesis seen in this slide, and the second set was the moderating effects of the complementary hypothesis. So, apologies. So before testing the hypothesis generated for this research, two quality checks were performed on the collected data. The first quality check evaluates the extent of the multicollinearity among the independent variables, and the second quality check was used to test the common method variance. And table 1 shows us these correlations between the independent variables review of the multicollinearity. In the common method variance, if the common method variance existed in the data, a single factor will emerge from a factor analysis of all questionnaire measurements items, or one general factor that accounts for most of the variance results. So the factor analysis revealed 5 factors with eigenvalues greater than 1, which accounted for 73% of the total variance. The first factor did not account for the majority of the variance, only 32%. So these results suggested that the common method variance it's not a serious problem for this study. The result for the study shows that the first equation included only the control variables in order to have a point of reference against which to compare the other equations. The second equation adds the three leading practices of environmental management to control variables to test the hypotheses regarding the direct effects of the leading practices on cost advantage. It can be seen that inclusion of the leading practices of environmental management does not increase the explanatory power of the model by much. The third equation includes complementary assets in addition to the variables included in the second equation to have a point of comparison for the models with interaction effects. The three remaining equations each include one of the interaction effects to test the hypothesis and the moderating effects of the complementary assets. So, conclusion: There's two main things that did this research show is that there was no direct impact between the leading practices of environmental management and cost advantage. And the second one was that complementary assets are necessary for the successful implementation of leading practices of environmental advantage. The results indicates that practices of environmental management, like I said before, did not positively affect the firm's cost advantage. Nevertheless, in order to create cost advantage from implementation of leading practices of environmental management, it is necessary that firms acquire complementary assets. So the outcomes of this research is that it shows a differentiation among firms that do have certain characteristics in their approach on environmental strategies. Such that outcomes suggest that future research it is necessary to understand the firm's resources and capabilities to effectively develop environmental strategies. And for that reason, that will lead to the firm's cost advantage. Additionally, I concluded that future research will be needed in the detailed identification of complementary assets and their specific role on the competitive advantage. The reasoning behind this approach is to have a better understanding of the several environmental practices and their significant importance to the environment. This is my final presentation. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.